Good evening. I'm Albert Carnesdale, Dean of the John F. Kennedy School of Government and Provost of Harvard University, and it's my privilege to welcome you here tonight to this annual Malcolm Wiener Lecture in International Political Economy. We at the Kennedy School seek continuously to try to understand the changes that are sweeping the world. And our times have provided no greater laboratories than the new democracies and economies of Central and Eastern Europe and of the former Soviet Union. And among these, none has been more successful than the Czech Republic. In large part, this can be attributed to tonight's speaker, Prime Minister Vaclav Klaus, the architect of what some have described as the economic miracle of Central Europe. Let me quote from a recent article in a magazine, Chief Executive, and I quote, "Since the 1992 elections, which brought to power a coalition government headed by Mr. Klaus, the Czech leader has launched 2 waves of voucher privatizations, transferring a total of $11.5 billion in property and other assets from the state to its citizens. Coupled with low inflation and unemployment rates, conditions appear ripe for robust economic expansion. Because of such progress, the general public has embraced the new order." And the New York Times has pointed out Mr. Klaus's aggressiveness, political skill, and ability to listen and to communicate with the people have combined to make him one of the most popular political figures in Central Europe. Vaclav Klaus was born in Prague. After graduating from the Prague School of Economics, he continued his studies of economics in Italy and in the United States. He's held various positions in the Institute of Economics as a researcher, then in the State Bank of Czechoslovakia, and in the Czechoslovak Academy of Sciences. He was then a governor of the World Bank for Reconstruction and Development, where he designed the plan for Czechoslovak economic reform, which he now administers for the Czech Republic. In 1990, he became the federal finance minister and chairman of civic reform. In April 1991, he became chairman of one of civic reform's successor organizations, the Civic Democratic Party, and soon thereafter, he became the deputy prime minister of the federal government. On July 2nd, 1992, he was appointed prime minister. Please join me in welcoming this year's Malcolm Wiener Lecturer in International Political Economy, the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, His Excellent Vaclav Klaus.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to come here. It's a great honor, great pleasure for me to be here, and I am very pleased to have a chance to share some of my views with you. I called my lecture Malcolm Wiener Lecture, which I am really very honored to have a chance to deliver. I decided to call it the Czech Republic Between the Past and the Future. The Czech Republic, together with other post-communist countries, has a unique opportunity to create a free society and a free market economy based on the rejection of both the collectivistic and corporativistic or syndicalistic approaches to the organization of human society. Let me use this forum, let me use this lecture to discuss some of the interesting issues of spontaneity on the one hand and constructivism on the other at the origin of a social order. Only occasionally in the history of a country do circumstances make it possible to start redefining and restructuring the fundamental rules and institutions under which political, economic, and social decisions are made. This is exactly the process we are experiencing, and some of us are deeply and more than passively involved in it. The key institutions of our society have been in the last 5 years in a continuous process of evolutionary emergence and constructive design. We have achieved a lot already. The Czech society and economy have progressed to what I call the early post-transformation stage, which can be defined as a situation where the key transformation tasks have been fulfilled. The old system was totally discredited, its institutions dismantled, and what is even more important, the resulting institutional vacuum has been very rapidly filled with an alternative coordinating mechanism. The alternative mechanism is well-known, standard, and non-innovative. It's a political pluralism with free entry into the political market on the one hand, and market economy based on a limited government, private property, liberalization, and deregulation. It seems almost irrelevant to me now and here to discuss the transformation stage proper, the intrinsic logic of the changes we have been undergoing, the rules we have to follow should we avoid falling into the reform trap and minimize the non-negligible transformation costs. At the beginning, 5 years ago, I was using an analogy of the game of chess. We discussed chess during our dinner here several minutes ago. I begged my fellow countrymen not to ask me what the situation on the chessboard would be after the 25th move of white bishop. I suggested instead to test my knowledge of the theoretical opening strategies of the chess game. And now I must say that the opening of the game is over now. And I would add to that we don't want to replay it again. Simply, we don't want to make mistakes and to return back and to start again. So I'm very glad that I already forgot the opening strategies. It's theoretically difficult to remember and to learn, so that's over. With Mr. Wiener, I can't play chess today because the opening strategies are forgotten. I don't know how to start. We are now well into the middle game. As every chess player knows, it is based less on theory, more on intuition and spontaneity. It's not trivial. We are getting closer to the end of the game, but I am sure I still have time to study the well-known ending strategies of the game. Maybe next time, Kennedy School of Government, we may discuss the end game strategies. What are the main lessons? We have learned? Lessons which may be of some relevance to you, to the students of government and public policy. So I would like to name some of them. When describing our time, we usually talk about a revolution. In our case, luckily, a velvet one. but we cannot isolate the present from history. For all our preoccupation with the difficult transformation tasks and challenges on our minds, it would be wrong and misleading to interpret our situation as a total discontinuity. We live in a very complicated mixture of continuity and discontinuity, and it would be an unforgivable mistake to move in society disproportionately to one side of such a multidimensional equation. We have been criticized, I must say, we have been criticized from both sides, but the art of transforming the society consists exactly in finding the optimum point. Of course, I have been criticized for too much continuity. Some people would like to see total discontinuity with the past. Of course, we have been criticized from the other side as well. Of course, there were people, and there are people in our country who would like to see the continuity, not much discontinuity. But I would again repeat, the art of transforming consists exactly in finding the optimum point, and it's definitely not trivial to find such a point. Second lesson, or second idea. The debate about continuity and discontinuity brings me to a few words regarding the past. It seems to me, we should neither demonize or nor trivialize or belittle it. Communism is not an unrepeatable event, falling upon its innocent victims from somewhere without their guilt, their tacit approval, or active cooperation. In some respect, and structurally, communism was nothing but a more extreme version of the constructivistic, paternalistic, and interventionist state whose milder forms are found in Western democratic countries as well. I know it's a strong and merciless statement, but it seems to me that I have to say that, I have to warn against that. Our oversensitivity, our very specific, very special oversensitivity stemming from our tragic experience in the past helps us to see it very, very sharply, definitely much sharper than in countries without such an experience. And this is the main reason for our criticism of some tendencies we see in today's world, we see around us in Europe, in the European Union, and elsewhere. So it was a very, very short remark regarding the past. Talking about the future, we stand firmly with both our feet on the ground. We do not want to invent a new, unknown, untried model of the world. We just want to reintroduce into our country the normal, standard world you have been privileged to live in. I have to stress that point because I am afraid that the dangerous and slippery third ways of constructivistic attempts to create a brave new world, to use Aldous Huxley's apt phrase, based on immodest intellectual aspirations. I'm really afraid of those third ways. We have our own experience with the third way thinking, which was done in our country some 25 years ago during the famous Prague Spring era. And we are very critical to that period, and therefore our vision of the future was very clear and very straightforward. And some of you even may know my well-known, I must say very often quoted phrase, which I used several weeks after the Velvet Revolution. I was asked about the third ways and about the reforms in the 60s, and I said, the third way is the fastest way to the third world, which was then quoted many, many times, and it's a simplification, but nevertheless it seems to me that there is some truth in it. So we were victims of such third ways attempts, and we really do not want to lose our freedom again. I used the term reintroduction. When using the term reintroduction, I did not mean a return. That's very important to distinguish. Reintroduction is not a return. We are not going back. We know that we cannot turn the clock of history back. We are moving forward, but in a way enriched or constrained by experience and by proven conservative values and traditions. When I stress normal, standard, and therefore generally applicable solutions of political, social, and economic problems of the post-communist countries, and not only them, I do not deny or underestimate all the diversity of culture, historical heritage, recent experience, natural endowment, climate, etc. But our tasks and our challenges have undoubtedly more general than specific features. We believe in the universality of people, and together with Adam Smith, in their strong internal motives to improve their lives, faiths, and well-being. I do not think it's necessary to teach and educate them to modify their dreams, tastes, habit, and preferences, because they are their own and not ours. The people from all over the world are able to use the existing opportunities for themselves, and by doing that, they magnify opportunities for the rest of us. What we have to do is remove all the barriers, restrictions, and constraints that have been artificially created in the past, and establish new rules, new playgrounds, new environment. And what is really even more important, we do not intend to perfect men and women. We just want to perfect the institutional framework for their activities. It's one of the crucial issues of the day, and I have been criticized very much at home for not talking that often and that much about the moral issues, about the perfection of man. But I am really convinced that organizing a systemic change from a communist society to a free society, what we have to do is not to try and not to attempt to perfect men and women. We have to perfect the institutional framework for their activities. I would like to stress that, and maybe to repeat again and again. Free society and market economy are universal concepts, and I can assure you that we accept them no less than you here. When trying to contribute to the creation of such a society, we are confronted with endlessly repeated criticism from both inside and outside, that we have not solved all our inherited problems yet, and that our success in the dismantling of communism is below expectations. I don't agree. I have to argue that those who endorse such a view were either wrong 10 years ago when they considered communism to be the embodiment of evil, the most democratic and inefficient system, or they are wrong now when they suggest that it would have been correct to overcome its legacy at lower costs and much faster. Communism would not have been so evil, so harmful, so extremely inefficient and irrational had it been possible to get rid of it so easily. It seems trivial, but when you look at the headlines of your newspapers and journals, the economic recession in the Czech Republic still continues. The authors of the headline are surprised, which is in a way, by the way, not true that it continues, but even to call it that way is missing the point totally, because there was no economic recession or crisis in our country in the last years. As I always say, it was a transformation shakeout of irrational, non-viable, non-feasible economic activities. It was part of the remedy, not part of the illness. But we had troubles to explain it, both inside the country and outside as well. Social phenomena take time. You can, by making unnecessary mistakes, make the transformation period longer. But the whole system cannot be changed overnight. And what must be emphasized, this is not the systemic change is not an intellectual exercise, an attempt to optimize the sequencing of individual transformation measures, but a multidimensional societal issue in which the spontaneity of human behavior and the complexity of human interaction play crucial roles. Again, I would like to stress intellectual and therefore constructivistic reform blueprints are of minor importance. The systemic change is a very delicate mixture of, as I say, intentions and spontaneity, of constructivism and of simply natural evolution. The role of radical reformers and politicians is just part of the game. The rest is played by millions of human beings living there with their own tastes, habits, preferences, dreams. So to mastermind the systemic change is really not possible. It's a very delicate mixture of spontaneity and intentions. Again, it's a non-trivial conclusion, not repeated sufficiently, not repeated enough. When we talk both in our country and elsewhere about the future, we usually start with the assumption that the conflict between communism and a free society is over. It may be true, but this does not imply that we have got to the end of history, as it is sometimes suggested, or that we have got to the end of ideology. As long as human beings remain both human and beings, if we can say that in English, I am not sure. As long as human beings remain both human and beings, there will be ideological conflict. And we are very happy that there will be ideological conflict. Present and future conflicts will be no less important fears and dangerous than the conflicts in the past, and we should not underestimate them. Let me mention some of the fashionable issues of a new conflict of visions we witness these days, not just in the transforming countries. The famous conflict between free and fair trade. I'm sure you know the debate going on in your country. I have a tendency to compare it with the debate between free and fair speech. It's very similar. We are always in favor of free speech, not fair speech, and therefore we are in favor of free trade, not fair trade. New forms of and reasons for government regulation connected with organized partial interests versus free market. It's another tremendous conflict in yours and our society as well. Social and or ecological dumping versus free competition. Another important conflict, very important for us. Civil society and communitarianism versus free society. Another important conflict of visions, etc. It can be discussed in details. Advocates of these criticize modern society and the alleged moral decay connected with it, favor many good and undisputed things, suggest a combination of popular anxieties about the future with nostalgia for a partly imaginary past, bring new dreams to our attention, and promise positive outcomes. But I'm afraid, and again, this is our oversensitivities, I am afraid such approaches, taken together even, constitute a real danger to civil liberty because they are directly anti-liberal, at least in the European meaning of the word. As I mentioned earlier, we are in many respects oversensitive after 40 years of communism. One of our oversensitiveness is the awareness of the fatal gap, almost ravine, between good intentions and the methods of imposing them directly upon us. Good ideas should be preached, but preaching yields results in decades or centuries. Their advocates, however, want a quicker fixing of the world and do not want just to patiently promote such ideas in a standard political process, look for difficult trade-offs and try to balance diverging views. The new messengers of truth are too impatient to wait for standard solutions, and we have to caution against that. We have reached what I called the post-transformation stage. The challenges of that stage are now different from the past and are becoming relevant to us. we know that we have to hold strongly the results we have compared to all other post-communist countries achieved. We have to avoid backsliding. We have to maintain the unique political, social, and economic stability, which is indispensable for further progress. We have to complete the liberalization and the deregulation process. We have to complete the privatization process, moving from the so-called transformation privatization to a classic one. We have to solve already standard macroeconomic dilemmas, which you know, which are not typical for countries under transformation: growth versus stability, internal versus external balance. We are confronted with several interesting and certainly non-trivial issues. How to reconcile now very strong economic recovery with the policy of disinflation. How to reconcile extremely low unemployment rate with economic growth. How to reconcile divergent tendencies in the balance of trade and the balance of payments. How to reconcile different rates of growth of export and imports with a fixed exchange rate. How to sustain rapid capital inflow based on a, I'm quite happy, on a high credibility of the country and a fixed exchange rate, and so on and so on. But all of them are already quite nice problems, post-transformation problems which have to be solved in any standard mature country and society. So in my short speech, and I was asked not to speak more than 30 minutes approximately, I hope I'm just on time. The title of my speech was Between the Past and the Future. I would like to say that the past is definitely over, and we want to avoid falling into the same or similar traps in the future. I tried to outline the way of thinking which helped to overcome the past in my country and which is used in the endless struggle for a better future. I am sure we will be on the same side of the barricade as you. Thank you very much for your attention.
We now have an opportunity for questions. There is a microphone on each side. Here it would be helpful, and there are also microphones up there for those of you that are up there. It would be most helpful if, when you're called upon, if you would identify yourself briefly and ask your question. Please.
I'm Dana Atchison. I'm a master's candidate here at the university. In 1991, the Czech National Assembly passed the Lustration Act, which required which banned individuals with alleged communist backgrounds, whether it was imposed willfully or whether it was forced upon them, from holding government positions, military positions, academic positions, media positions. And it also required that individuals applying for those jobs prove that they don't have that background. This conflicts with several principles and articles in the subsequent Constitution, and I think some of the principles which your movement stood for. And I know that you supported the act, and I'm wondering, even though it implemented some of your colleagues, would you do it again 4 years later?
Oh, I think I have first to explain the idea, and second to correct some of the mistakes in your presentation. So, as I said in my speech, the whole transformation is a very delicate mixture of continuity and discontinuity, of forgetting the past or of playing just with the past, and to find what to do with the past or to go directly to the future is the most difficult task for all of us. We are under permanent criticism that we did not sufficiently punish the former communist leaders in the country. At the same time, of course, there are many suggestions to forget the past and to go ahead as if nothing happened. So that law, that bill, was one small, I would say almost irrelevant attempt to somehow solve that extremely difficult issue. To discuss it in normal, using standard textbooks, and to discuss whether it's compatible with standard liberal democratic ideas is a totally misunderstanding what is going on. It's very difficult to forget the past totally, and not to do some new injustices, new troubles. So a difficult trade-off, extremely difficult. And just to read a textbook and to discuss that issue is missing the point completely. I was discussing, I am definitely in the Czech Republic on the side which is more attacked for forgetting the past. Even if I have never been a member of the Communist Party, I can afford saying that. And I try to explain that point to the citizens of the Czech Republic and Czechoslovakia. This is another well-known story, another well-known analogy. I was saying to the Czech citizens, look, if you drive a car, what you need is not just the front window, front shield. What you need is the rear vision mirror. Who doesn't drive the car simply doesn't feel the importance of the mirror, which shows you what is going on behind you. So this is the same issue. And I try to explain to the Czech citizens, the point is, we must have the rear vision mirror, but the rear vision mirror should not be greater than the front window, because otherwise you don't see where you are going. It seems to me that analogy is absolutely crucial. I remember when we came last year to Chile, we discussed the same issue in Chile, and I explained that story to the Chilean President Frey, and he was absolutely fascinated. He said, I will use that analogy in my speeches in my country as well. So it's a part of a very delicate process of trying to find how big the rear vision mirror should be. So to criticize it with some simple textbook ideas is absolutely wrong. Now, to correct something, that bill does not prohibit to do any profession. You mentioned academics, media, or I don't know what yet. It's not important. That bill said just one thing: someone who is eligible should not be member of the government, MP in the parliament, probably ambassador, if I'm appointed position. So he could be in the parliament even when he's elected by someone. So he can't be ambassador in the United States, for example. He can't be prime minister. So it's such a small rear vision mirror that it's even not worth discussing. Believe me.
All right. Thanks.
My name is Veit Dengler. I'm a master's student here at the Kennedy School. The Czech Republic will probably be among the first new democracies to join the European Union. And within the Union, there is the eternal debate between those who want the more cooperation between national governments, as is the case in most subjects, for example, internal security or culture, and those who want a little more federal Europe, which is the case, for example, in trade or in competition now. Where do you think the Czech Republic will come down? Will it come down more on the side of the individual national states cooperating, or will it be more the federal?
For me, the nation state is the building block of European integration. And I always say we lost our national identity under the banner of the proletarian internationalism in the past, and we don't want to lose it tomorrow again. So for me, I definitely belong to that side of the European debate.
Hi, I'm Joshua Walker. I'm a senior at the college. Prime Minister Klaus, you mentioned that you're under heavy criticism from both sides in this economic debate in your country. And I suppose in this and in many other cases, to be beset on both sides can be construed as a measure of success. And I don't think this is any different. But the question is how to show that to one's people. And I'm curious if you might expand upon how you prove the utility of that optimum point or that optimum way which you're striving for to your people in the immediate sense.
Well, I don't think there is other proof, just the fact whether the people in the country accept that, whether they vote for you, whether you have sufficient support. There is no other way how to prove that. The only way to demonstrate that is the political stability in the country, social stability, economic stability, and all that.
Excuse me, my name is Paul Bernstein, and I've been writing and teaching about Czechoslovakia for many, many years. First of all, you deserve congratulations for how far the country has come under your leadership in economic transformation. I found it interesting, one of the principles you said was that it's important to be clear that the policy of the government is to perfect not people, but institutions. And one aspect of a movement towards completion of transformation and towards a more normal society would be increasing contribution from the spontaneity of people. Now, it seems to me that in the Czech past, there has been a tradition of encouraging civic culture and spontaneity and individual creativity that is attached with something that you might not find yourself agreeing with, and that is an activist cultural tradition that involved things like humanistic reform. I'm wondering if you find yourself sometimes in opposition to traditions from someone like Beneš, who, as a former president of the country, still identified his tradition with words like socialism. And there seems to be perhaps in this desire for and recognition of the need for a spontaneous activist people from below, a not complete appreciation of the role of culture that describes itself in cultural actors, writers, reformers who use words that then sound, in the view that you mentioned, as coming too much from the left, too much from what you called constructivism. Do you understand my question, please?
I have difficulties with this.
All right.
But probably it's the difficulty is not in understanding or not understanding. Probably I understand the question. I disagree totally with the way of thinking which is behind your question. That's my point. You know, first, there is a mixture of different ideas. Definitely, we are building a free society. without disqualifying adjectives. And of course, spontaneity of human behavior, spontaneity of voluntary created associations of people in all dimensions of life is of course the basis of a free and democratic society. This is to deny that and even to argue against that, which is absolutely crazy and not understandable for me. I disagree with maybe I almost accept it as a criticism when you congratulate me on the economic performance, because I think that our main achievement is the political evolution in the country. We were the first post-communist country which really introduced a free entry into the political market, which instituted political parties existing in a pluralistic democracy. It seems to me that it is much more important than even the economic transformation, because that's absolutely crucial. We are the first country in the post-communist world with a more or less standard structure of political parties. We are probably the first country in the post-communist world where the political parties have standard names, not just national fronts against somebody, Russia's choices, or Forza Italia. Forza Italia is before transformation. You know, this is the pre-transformation moment. Civic forums, civic movements. This is before the normal development of a political system. So we are already behind it. So I am pretty sure that the achievements in the political sphere, in the enormous evolution of the cultural sphere, are maybe even more important than the economic side of all of that. And definitely the whole transformation is a very delicate mixture, interplay of political, social, economic, cultural, and other aspects, factors. You can't go ahead in one aspect only and to forget the other. So I don't really understand the question or the implicit criticism in it, because we really believe in freedom and in voluntary associations of free men and women, and we definitely don't want to block it, and we are not blocking it in any way.
Perhaps
Thank you. I think
okay.
we'll go to the next question. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Raj Desai, doctoral student in the government department at the university. Something that tends to make foreign investors a little bit jittery about Eastern Europe and the Czech Republic is what seems to be the still large discretionary power which the state, the government, tends to hold. Now, this may be a false illusion, but some examples are petrochemicals, telecommunications. Ministry of Industry and Trade has taken back voting rights on some large industries. Is this something that you are afraid of, that in the rush to sort of mass privatization, because the property relations have not been perfectly clarified, that there is pressure for governmental authorities to become more and more involved in clarifying these relations?
Well, that question doesn't come from a student. That question comes from a lobbying investor, you know, whose firm simply didn't win to buy a firm somewhere in Bohemia, and he's very sorry, and he writes articles one after another in the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and is very sorry that there must be something wrong because some other firm got a deal, not ours. So this is the structure of the question. I simply, really, we decided to privatize a very difficult very complicated part of our economy, oil refineries. It's a very special subject. It's not like privatizing thousands and thousands of standard industrial firms. As you know, in many Western European countries, such special firms are still in government hands, and in our case, we have just one pipeline coming from Russia. We are building the other one coming from Germany now, but we still have just one pipeline, which means one oil, which is a very difficult issue strategically and in other terms. The decision to privatize oil refineries, which have just one source of oil, is really a difficult decision, and I am pretty sure that the government has a right to decide to privatize such a firm or not to privatize such a firm. It has no connection whatsoever with the discretionary power of the government. Discretionary power of the government is something else. When the government is the owner of the post office, as it is in the United States of America, the government has a right to decide to privatize the post office or not to privatize the post office. It's the decision of the owner of that business. I wouldn't call it extreme form of discretionary power of U.S. government. Simply, it is in the hands of the government, and the government may decide. So I think this is not correct, what we are talking about, and I would say that the discretionary power of the Czech government is not only comparable with today's EU governments. I would say that the Czech economy is less regulated than a standard Western European economy today on the 2nd of May, 1995.
Thank you.
My name is Joshua Tucker, and I'm a PhD student in the government department. And I had a three-part question. First, it's quick, very quick. First, I was wondering how big a role you felt that foreign investment has played in the economic recovery of the Czech Republic. Second, what active steps your government has taken to encourage this foreign investment, or to put it in more sort of academic terms, what signals your government has tried to send to foreign investors that the Czech Republic is a good place to invest their money. And third, which of these steps or signals do you feel have been the most effective in attracting foreign investment, and which do you feel have been the least effective?
Is this going to be your dissertation?
First, we welcome foreign investment. Probably that's all what I can say. Foreign investment is not a panacea. Sometimes foreign investors are successful, sometimes not. Some deals are good, some deals are bad. As in any activity, some foreign investors got into bankruptcy, some foreign investors are very successful. We are not encouraging foreign investors by special privileges. We are not seducing them by suggesting tax exceptions and suggesting tax paradise as in some other countries. On the contrary, the whole transformation was about creating the world of fixed rules and equal opportunities. And I don't see any reason to give a special privilege to a rich American investor vis-à-vis the newly born Czech firm. I don't see any reason to do that. It seems to me a tremendous mistake that some countries are giving special privileges for foreign investors. And I know that sometimes American investors are complaining. Yes, it's correct. We are not giving them special privileges. But what I'm very angry when they call the fact that we are not giving them special privileges, they call it discrimination. This is very, very interesting. And the way of encouraging foreign investors, the way we do it is different. Prime Minister is traveling, making speeches as here tonight, and seducing foreign investors to come. My wife gives me advice. The main reason for coming to invest in the Czech Republic is really the political stability, social stability, economic stability, and I am sure the investors feel that, they know that, and it's not necessary to announce special artificial forms of attracting foreign investors. Some countries may be needed to attract them with special artificial methods. We don't think we need it. We are rich, bright, or groom, I don't know what.
Maybe I should take this opportunity. We'll continue to introduce two people. First of all, the Prime Minister's principal economic advisor, Mrs. Klaus. And secondly, the person who's made this series of lectures possible, Malcolm Wiener. We'll continue with a few more questions.
Hello. My name is Kathleen Burrell. I'm a graduate student at Boston University. And I wanted to switch gears a little bit, if that's all right, and ask you what you think the role of NATO should be, if any, in Central and Eastern Europe, and also what role you think NATO actually will have, if that's any different from what you think it should be. Thank you.
NATO membership, yeah. I said already several times here during my 2 days in your country that without the communist experience, the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia would have definitely been the founding father of European community and NATO as well. So now we are simply coming back to where we really belong, and we want to be members of both those organizations as soon as possible. We are doing our best to be prepared for the membership, but to become a member in a club, you need two sides. You must be willing to enter, and the club must be willing to accept you as a member. Now I'm always asked when we will be members of those two institutions, and I say it depends who will be prepared first, and I'm pretty sure that the Czech Republic will be prepared earlier for membership than the other side.
May I follow up on that? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Romana Visitova, and I'm a doctoral student here at the Kennedy School. You mentioned the trade-offs between macroeconomic goals of inflation and unemployment and economic growth, and I wondered if you saw any relationship between income distribution and economic growth in the sense of the World Bank's identification in East Asia of growth being partly attributed to, or at least related to, a more equal income distribution and a more educated population. And in relationship to your comments about the role of government in creating institutions for growth and for freedom, what role does the government have to play, or should the government be concerned at all with this income distribution? And how does that relate to your policies on healthcare and education? Maybe healthcare I should address to Mrs. Klaus.
Again, it's a topic for another lecture. So how to answer that in an appropriate way. First, I would like to say that the income distribution in Czechoslovakia in the past was probably the most equal on the earth. It was a very specific combination of typical Czech democratic traditions, or even pseudo-democratic traditions on the one hand, and the communist distributional patterns and ideas. So even 10 years ago, in comparative studies, the distribution of income and property was more equal in Czechoslovakia even than in all other communist countries at that time. Even for us, when traveling in Poland, Hungary, Soviet Union, we were shocked to see the huge differences in income at that time. So our starting point was totally different, as maybe you know, or as it is usually known. Definitely, the very rapid introduction and initiation of market economy increased the disparities of income and property, but still the income distribution is relatively equally distributed. Again, the analysis show that it's more equal than in other post-communist countries now. So it's a process, and I must say that the existing disparities in income, of course, create first debate in the country. The populist press on the left, of course, plays with that. But in principle, my feeling is that the existing disparities of income in the Czech Republic are more or less accepted in the country. How the process will evolve in the future, that's another problem, another issue. But until now, it's not a real issue. It's even not a real political issue debated in the country. It may come very soon. I don't know. But until now, it's not a real problem. And what we are trying is to introduce, especially this year, a totally different system of social policy, social support, social transfer payments, to make it reasonable, rational, and this is exactly our policy.
Let's see, there are 4 more questions. We'll try and get to each of them, but please be brief with your questions, and we'll start up there.
My name is Marina Barabbas. I teach philosophy, among other things, also in Prague. You mentioned the worry about the past, but you concentrated on internal issues. One question which seems to be worrying is the question of the German past. And if I'm not mistaken, the foreign minister of Germany has said that unless the Czech Republic comes to some kind of arrangement with the Sudeten Germans, Germany will block the entry of the Czech Republic into the European Union. Would you be willing to say anything about it?
Well, I know that there are maybe even such ideas in some circles in Germany, but I have never heard that the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, Klaus Kinkel, said anything like that.
Okay.
So that's just part of my answer. Of course, to live with a big neighbor is a problem. Always is a problem, and I always try to explain to my fellow countrymen that we are very lucky. We have no problems with Madagascar because we have no borders with Madagascar. Of course, we have borders. We have the past. We have the history. not always easy, simple with Germany. So there will be always some tension which is necessary, unavoidable. For us, nevertheless, there is no way of returning back. There is no way to turn the clock of history back to some moment, because there is no moment in time which is the innocent starting point when where everything was okay, and only after that something happened. There is nothing like that in the history of mankind. So we have to accept the status quo. The past is the past. We can't play with the past. We can't put the past on the chessboard and to play chess with that and to try to change one moment in the past or another. Simply, I'm sure that even the Germans know that, and what happened in 1938, during the war, after the war, is for us history, is as history as I don't know what to mention in the U.S. history, but with Boston we have Tea Party, let's say. It's for us it's Tea Party, let's say. So we have to think, to look into the future, and I hope that majority of Germans is doing the same.
My name is I am a student at the college, and I have a question for you as follows. Basically, you mentioned that your country's success was largely based that you focused on already tried out and well-functioning economic models such as free market economies in Western Europe and the US. However, there are still quite a few differences between, let's say, the economic system of Sweden or France and the economic system of the United States, particularly when it comes to government intervention, partly also corruption, and when it comes to owning of state-run enterprises, or when it comes to the possibilities for entrepreneurship. And which kind of the two systems do you personally favor and think will be best for the Czech Republic?
Well, if you force me to choose between Sweden, France, United States, Madagascar, and Argentina, I don't know. I usually ask, do you play tennis?
Yes.
And who is the model for you, Agassi or Sampras? Do you think, if you want to improve your tennis playing, do you need to play with Agassi or Sampras, or do you think that the last tennis instructor all over the world can help you to improve your tennis? What do you think?
Well, it depends how good I am. I mean,
I would argue. So we are not looking for models, really not. I want to improve my tennis, but it's absolutely irrelevant whether it will be more like Sampras or like Agassi. I'm sorry. And we want free market economy, and definitely I'm more favor of the Chicago school than the Swedish welfare state, definitely.
We're going to hear from Sampras and then Agassi, and that will be it, yes.
Well, I decided to use two American examples, not the Czech tennis players.
Good evening. My name is Jan Vihan. I'm a freshman at the college. And Mr. Klaus, in your speech, you used the analogy of a chess game. So let me follow up a bit on this analogy. You said the Czech Republic and also the other Central European countries have completed the opening of the chess game. And the vast majority of the population see the ending as a membership in the European Union. My question deals with the middle game. Specifically, what do you see the role of the joint effort of the Central European countries as in speeding up or slowing down this middle game, this moving toward the ending? Whether you see it, what should be the role of the joint effort?
Well, I don't understand the idea of joint effort.
Or
First,
sort of like a
I
cooperation.
don't think that all the countries already completed the opening part of the game. Definitely not. Probably no one. But I don't understand the joint effort. Really, if you want to improve your tennis, I think you have to start training seriously. Whether your friend is training as well, it seems to me almost irrelevant. The same is true about our membership, let's say NATO or EU.
Yeah, but if I have a better partner, I can play better, I can improve myself better.
But my partner is Mr. Delor or now Mr. Santer, not
Okay.
somebody in Moldova, Bulgaria, Hungary, and elsewhere.
Thank you.
Dr. Klaus, I'm Christopher Messina. I'm a Czech-American and Harvard Business School graduate. And my question has to do with something that you warned against in your talk, the aggressively interventionist state. In light of your experience, the experience of both the Czech and Slovak republics, what advice would you give our Congress as it debates legislation right now in the aftermath of the terrible bombing in Oklahoma, some of which is going to impact private liberties?
Well, after losing elections at home and coming here as an independent scholar, I would be ready to give advice. As a prime minister of an independent country, I'm sorry, I can't give advice. I will have a talk with President Clinton day after tomorrow, so we will talk about that.
Thank you.